Hello, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to another retro classic movie show. The show where we talk about movies anywhere from the early 70s right up to the early 2000s. And of course, joining me as always is my great co host, Mr. DJ Anubis of the Metal Radio Tavern.
What's going on, peeps?
Yes, so this film is quite a unique film. Like I was telling my co-host, Mr. DJ Anubis, the film we're about to talk about, I've only seen a couple of times. The first time, I think I had mixed feelings, and then the second time, I liked it a lot better than the first time, and now I've watched it again, so I'll be telling them all about the feels about this one. But of course, the film that he has chosen, because this is Mr. DJ Anubis's pick, is The 13th Warrior. So, my friend, what was your reasoning behind picking The 13th Warrior?
I've always liked the concept of it. To give a backstory to my experience with the movie itself, it's kind of a funny one because in the 90s, I was working at a bookstore, and when Jurassic Park came out, Michael Crichton, the author, became a really big name in terms of author and books. And so just browsing and stocking the shelves, I would see the books that he would get. And I saw one that at the time was called Eaters of the Dead. And so I'm kind of like just reading the synopsis of it. And I thought, well, this is really cool plot. Like I never read the book, but I was aware of it. And then fast forward to when the 13th Warrior came out, I didn't even know initially that it was based off the book until a bit later. And so when I saw the trailer, I was like, I saw the Northmen, and then I saw Banderas. I was like, this doesn't make sense. This is like me kind of how I felt about The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Because it just looked out of place. But then when I went to see the film, and when I learned that it was about Eaters of the Dead, I quickly fell in love with the film. Like it was really well acted, has some good gore in it, and just it does give me the feels with some of the people that end up dying in the film. So I thought it was well done. I do know that people are kind of mixed on it. Maybe it's because some of those people the book might be like totally different. I'm not sure. But I do love the movie a lot.
Yeah, like I say, I haven't read the book, but I did know this is. So it's got, The 13th Warrior is a 1999 American historical fictional action film based on Michael Crichton's 1976 novel, Eaters of the Dead, which is also a loose adaptation of the tales of Beowulf and historical account of the Volga Vikings. So that's what got me very much interested in it, is the fact, because you've mentioned the Northman, which I really enjoy that movie. I don't think it's my favorite Robert Eggers movie, but it's definitely a really enjoyable film. So obviously, after seeing that movie and seeing other Viking historical drama films, when you suggested this, I was like, oh yeah, this is a great choice to give this, after seeing those particular films, to give this thing another whirl. And like you, Antonio Banderas and like his character, I found like a very unique concept to bring into this. He's like basically an outsider that comes into this and becomes part of the Northmen, basically, which I really think was a really unique way to go.
Yeah, especially, and that's the thing. Like again, I haven't read the book, but obviously he becomes the 13th Warrior as he's supposed to be an ambassador. He got banished from his kingdom because he was in love with some dude's wife, and that guy had connections to the king or whatever. And so basically, he's now kind of going around trying to talk with people and cultures and stuff. And so they end up running. They were actually being chased by some marauders. And then when the Northmen on their boat came down the river, it scared him off. And so now he was trying to integrate with the Northmen, to try to understand who they were, what their culture's like. And it's quite different than what they were used to. You got the spitting and the snot and the same fucking thing. And he's like, no, I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, like what I loved about this right at the beginning is, like you say, you hear his backstory. Basically, it starts off with like on the stormy boat, and then it kind of flash backwards in the flashback of how it tells his story, how he falls in love with like this rich, I guess he's like a rich lord, like an Arabian lord or some forth. Yeah, he falls in love with his wife, which is obviously a no-no, and then he ends up going, on the run with this, I guess, this translator, and he's chased. He meets the Northmen who are just sailing down the river. And what I really loved about this film right at the beginning is that he has to basically be around somebody or a culture. He likes to study the culture. He likes to integrate himself within the cultures of other societies. But then he doesn't just kind of become a chameleon by joining the cultures and getting he actually studies the language. And I love right at the beginning of this movie how it starts off when, after he's been chased by the marauders and he's trying to integrate, he's got this translator who's basically speaking for him or translating what the Northmen are saying to him. And then there's this one moment there, they're basically making fun of him. They're basically busting his balls, and he suddenly speaks about his horse, and he suddenly starts speaking in their language, and that's where it's a total game changer.
That's actually one of the best moments in the film is so after, basically what happens is he gets a culture shock. He gets there and they realize the king they had died, and so they were going to send him off to Valhalla by burning the ship that he's on. And I actually, this for the first time, I've seen this about a dozen times. I just now caught this for the first time. Is the king's wife was going to go with him. So she was alive when they burned it. Like, she was going to Valhalla with her husband.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the first time I actually caught that. I did see when they were raising her and they were doing the Nordic prayer, which is a great thing too.
Yeah, because they were they were like observing like this ritual, the Northman ritual. And you just keep on seeing every time they're speaking, the translator's basically translating the words that's being said, I guess, at this Viking funeral. And this larger man behind the wife keeps lifting that up. She keeps saying something, and then next thing you know, you just see her walk onto the boat. And as she's walking on the boat, the next thing you know, they're holding torches on the boat, and it's just getting engulfed in flames.
And and you can see that it affects him to the point like he doesn't understand like why she would make that choice. So it's nothing being said. He just sees it and he's like, wow, this is really, really interesting, like. So anyway, the next morning, another ship arrives and has a young boy on there, and he's at the stern, and he's waking up and he goes into the tent where the Vikings are and his translator, and he's like, another ship came. And so the translator starts talking to, I forget who the main short dude is. He's really good in this film, but he's like the Bullvine's right hand guy.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about the cast for people who watch. So Antonio Banderas plays Ahmad ibn Fadlan. Eben, yes. And then you've got Diane Venora as Queen Wella, I think. I'm going to butcher these names, which is always comical. And then, so I'm assuming this is the Queen, I'm assuming.
No, that's Olga. That's Olga there.
That's Olga. So,
yeah.
So the next character is the one who was named as Beowulf, the leader, who was played by Vladimir Kulch, which is the big dude, who I thought looked very imposing and very intimidating.
I loved his demeanor. total
Yeah.
boss.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Then you had Tony Curran as Weath, who is the musician.
Yep.
And then you have these two who are the one with the blonde hair is the lead. He is just hilarious. I love him.
Yeah, the small guy there.
He is Hagar. Hagar the Joyous, played by Dennis Stolhall.
Yep.
And the other guy, I believe he is a British actor, and I think it's Clive Russell as Healfdene the Fat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they're like your main
guys,
characters.
Yeah, so they find out that the boy and his family is plagued by an ancient evil in their kingdom, and so they've come to both Beowulf to get help to deal with this. And again, there's more rituals here, so they bring in like this oracle who's gonna, throw down the bones, and it's almost like witch doctor almost. So she's pulling out the bones, and so what ends up happening is she calls out like there's going to be 13 warriors, and so she's calling them out, and each one decides that they're going to go and fight. And of course, Beowulf's the first one, and then they just kind of go in order and whatnot. And then the 13th one, when I get to it, everything gets quiet, and the translator is like, "Well, the 13th warrior is not a Northman," and so everyone's looking at Eben there, Ahmad.
Yeah.
Antonio Banderas character, and he's like, "Well, what are you saying?" He's like, "Guess you're going on a trip." And so, to get back to what you were saying is, excuse me, before they start off, they're talking in their native tongue. He doesn't understand them, Banderas' character, and so they say something about his horse. He's got this Arabian horse, which is smaller than their bigger ones they got in the north. And so the translator's like, yeah, they said, well, why would an arrow bring a dog to war? And they're just kind of making fun of how small the horse is. So you have to keep that in your head for a minute. So they start traveling. And really, this is the testament to the character of Eben, how he deals with how he's going to integrate with these guys, because they all know each other. They eat and talk and laugh. He's studying what they're saying. So again, it happens within like in the movie, it happens in like a 10-minute period, but you have to understand this is a long trip. So it's probably months while they're doing this.
Yeah.
And so they're at a fire, camping at one point, and one of the guys who, not a bad dude, he ends up perishing later, but he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
And he starts to say something snarky because he's talking with his banter with his guys. He's like, yeah, it looks probably like this one's mother. And they're all assuming he doesn't know what they're saying. And at this point, he's already figured it out. So all of a sudden, he starts speaking in their tongue. Now it's English to us because they're switching the movie to whatever they're talking to the English to make everyone understand what's being said.
Yeah, and I think it's a great scene, and like everything's great about it. Like the cinematography's great, like the lighting's great, like the facial expressions, how the characters are, coming across, and it's great how it kind of slowly switches where you see them talking in that foreign tongue, and then they start suddenly. One by one, each character is then saying a word or a sentence in English.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, it turns to Antonio Banderas' character, and he basically throws an insult back, and the encampment who's watching goes silent.
Yeah, the minute he starts speaking, they just stop. And like it's almost like they just thought some sort of witchcraft hit him or something. So he mocks the guy that tried to mock him. He's like, at least I know who my daddy is. And so the guy gets ready to try to attack him, and then this short herger, he stops him, and he goes, how did you learn our language? He says, I listened. And it actually made him happy. He was like, wow, this guy, okay. Which then falls into the next scene the next day where the one guy that was initially pissed off at him says, yeah, Arab, why would an Arab bring a dog to war? He says, yeah, I heard this before. gets on his horse, does some little jumps and stuff, and that's again, you see the nods and they're respecting that he can handle himself. This is, of course, before he has to hold a sword, which is kind of funny, but
yeah, the whole sword thing is hilarious. Where he's shown, and he just it's where they're like building around the encampment, building around like the home, because obviously they've went back home because they must have been traveling. And this is my assumption at the beginning of the film. So right at the beginning of the film, obviously, like we said, he's being chased by the marauders. They bump into this ship in the lake that's with the Vikings, the Northmen. They see the king's dead. So in my mind, they were already on the way home with the body of the king to do this funeral, when all of a sudden the boy who comes to them and says, our village, our home is being attacked by this entity, this mystical, unknown thing. And so then they're starting to, create like an enforcement around their village, like building walls out of wood and, like a forge kind of thing. And he's busy, they're all busy working as a team and they make their home secure, and he's like not really. I don't think he's like he's not somebody that's good with building, or I think he's used to being more like a person who works via like he's
in his own kingdom he was a poet. He really wasn't like a warrior. That's why when they first encountered the Eaters of the Dead, he's like, it's like, I'm not a warrior. He says, soon you will be.
Yeah.
You're going to have no choice. But yeah, so they get to the new town or whatever that city is where they're supposed to go. And it's really a tough scene because as they're going in on horse, like there's barely any young men. Most of them are either kids or women. And so, they go to the king, and the king knows him because he knew his dad, so that's why he called for him. And so it is kind of a cool moment where Beowulf comes up next to the king and whispers like, what plagues this city, my lord? And the guy's like, he's like, and so they have what's called the let's see if I get the name right, because do they name it at all? I don't know if they don't say. They're called like the bin something. Window. Excuse me, the window.
Oh, the windows, yeah.
Yeah. So what these people are is basically nomads that dress up as bears. Like they have the headdress. They have these like maces with like bear claws on them. So they try to pretend they're bears because they're cannibals.
Yeah,
and this is a big no-no.
Yeah,
in Nordic lands. Excuse me.
I think this is where they basically take the mythology of Beowulf, because Beowulf, as you know, he was like this fierce warrior who went after. There was Grendel, who was the son of Wendel. That's in the mythology. So throughout this, you do. So he was like a bear hunter, a Viking lord, and all. So it mixes that story. So the Wendels are like that tribe of Wendel people that's representing the mythology of Wendel itself. Because then later on, you're all introduced to their leader, who was female, who it was like the mother of Wendel. The mother
that's
Wendel.
the cool thing, because they have two balances of power. So you have the mother, who is the matriarch of all of them, and then you have the one leader of the attackers, which is he has the horns of power. It's like a certain headdress. So he's the guy. So we learn obviously through their own oracle that they have to kill not only the mother, but they have to kill the guy with the horns of power to make them all disperse. Because you can sit there and try to slay them one by one, but there's so many of them that it's like you'd be wasting your time. Yeah,
definitely. And obviously the great thing about this, because like I say, I hadn't seen it for a while. I forgot, like I even remember when I first seen this, I thought, was this a fantasy movie? Were these like real mythological creatures? Because obviously the basically tried to secure the home and the encampment where they live. And on the night time, that there's that they said these things come out when it's foggy and the night's clear and there's fog all around, so you can't see them. And then on that first night that they're all back in the encampment, they're all, they've drank ale, they've told stories. They're now sleeping in like the main hall, the main like hall that they're all presiding. And next thing you know, you can hear creaking around. You can see like in the cracks of the wood, you can see shadows walking up and down like the walkways, and then you can hear things creaking on the roof. Then they're suddenly attacked, and when they first hit, you can hear like animal noises when they come in and they're swinging and they're attacking, and people are killed on both sides. The difference is when they think they've had the upper hand and they've won this battle, they see the people that are part of them, the Northmen, they've had their heads decapitated and they've had parts of their body parts taken away. But when they also look around, they look at the bodies, they kind of like do like to investigate what's actually attacking them. Their bodies are the ones that have died from the Wendell's tribe aren't there. They've been taken away. But you don't
it's very weird about how the mythology works in the movie, because it's all based upon fear. So like even early on, Banderas' character, he's like, when he first sees like a scene where they come across a house where the parents were killed because they found a little boy that was running away, he's like, what kind of man would do this? And they're like, it's not a man, like, and so they build this mythology within themselves as the window. And so like everyone thinks they're monsters. They don't think they're actually human. There is a point where Banderas kills one. He's like, it's just a man. It's just a man. So then he feels better about it, because like, but up until that point, it's like fear. It's like he thinks he's dealing with the supernatural. And so that's how they kind of build their legend of themselves, with what they do. Because they take away the bodies, the same like, oh, you can't kill us. And plus, they're probably going to eat their own bodies anyway, because they eat everybody.
Yeah,
so
it's like cannibalistic.
Yeah. But there is a cool point in this too, where the king has a son, and he has like a good friend who's like this big, massive dude. And he's kind of like just dick swinging. He's trying to compare dicks with Beowulf. He's like, yeah, you can talk a big game, but until you've survived the night, against the window or whatever, And of course, Beowulf's like, well, I haven't heard any of your exploits. What are you doing? So there is a cool moment that I really love in this, where Herger, like, they have to set a tone, because Olga tells Banderas that the king's son is plotting against him, like because they're worried that they're trying to take over the king's kingdom, but they're not there to do that. They're trying to help them. So Herger and Beowulf are like, well, we got to make an example. I love this part, because Herger goes and picks a fight with the big dude, which is the bodyguard for the king's son. And so what they do is they get 3 shields each, and they go in combat. And so you go through your shields, and then obviously if you don't have any shields left, then you're probably going to be killed, and depending on what they decide. And you can see Banderas' concern for Herger. Like, he's built this friendship with all of them at this point. So he's like, what are you doing, man? He's going to get killed. And he's so freaking out about it. But as the big man goes through the shields of Herger like gets down on a knee as if he's like tired. And so big man,
that he's wounded, which is a great way how they did this, is like how, like, especially Banderas, because obviously like you said before, yes, it's set like in an hour and a half movie, so you're doing this in the movie time, but in actuality, Banderas' characters might have bonded with these characters over a period of 6-7 months. So it's not just now a case of him being, integrating because of survival reasons. It's actually bonded, and he actually is like becoming like a brother to them, which you will discover later on in the movie. So when Herger goes to face off with the bodyguard, he's actually fearful for his friend's life.
Yeah, and so as Herger's down, the big guy goes to like do the kill move, and Herger sweeps around and cuts his head off. And that's when you kind of get this moment where like Banderas is like, you could have killed him at any time. It's like, yes. And he says, why the deception? He's like, because the dude was measuring strength, and we had to give him something he hasn't seen before. And so now he has to recalculate, which, as Beowulf said, was very costly, because for every man that had to go out by an example like that, you lose a sword, because they were there to help try to keep the window at bay as well. But now you had to make a point to the son to say, don't fuck with us, because we're not going to play this shit, you know?
Yeah.
So I do love that scene a lot too. I think that's a very, very cool scene.
Yeah. And also I love the scene, which I don't know, I think this scene happens either after that scene or before, where, like you said, Banderas' character, he's struggling with the sword. So he then goes, do you have a metal worker? And then he walks up and he actually turns the sword into
he grinds it down to like a saber.
Yeah. And then the same character, he looks at Banderas, goes, when you die, I'll give your sword to my daughter.
Yeah, that's the redhead. The musician's like, hey, because he's like all being fancy with it. And he's like, so the redhead's like, hey, when you die, can I give that sword to my daughter? He's like laughing. So, and he took it in a good joke. Again, that's where the repertoire between them all as friends now, that they can do that. But he had to adjust the sword because he couldn't lift it. So now he's like, you know, chopping and going about his business.
Yeah. So it's after this also happens, and they finally like prove themselves that they're not there to take over, they're there actually to help. They then go to see this I guess it's like, I think to the elderly woman. They basically go to her because Banderas' character has figured out that these aren't beasts, they actually are human, and that they're just in disguise. And he discovers that they may be humans, but they act like animals, and they act like in a certain pattern. And he figures out that they basically act like bears. And he goes,
Beowulf basically is telling everybody that he wants to go on the offensive, because if they keep trying to defend the encampment, they're just going to keep getting run through, because they can't seem to stop the overflow. There's just too many of them. So as you said, they go to see the oracle about how to go about hunting them down. And that's when she starts telling them, like, if you want to defeat the window, you got to cut the head off of the snake. Basically, you got to go in, you got to kill her, the mother, and then kill the guy with the horns.
Yes.
And then, as you said, as they're kind of following the trail, they end up coming to a spot where all the totems are and everything. And basically, that's their mark and territory. And the guy comes back. One of the guys comes back. He says, yeah, I see some stuff, but I don't see anything. And then that's when Banderas is like, well, how do you hunt a bear in winter? And they say, well, you find a cave. And then everyone's lights go on. It's like, okay, we got to find a cave. So that's what they're doing now.
And that's where the fun starts.
Yeah.
Where they find a cave and they basically figure out that this is basically the home of the Wendels. And then they immediately just go on the attack. And this is one of the best fight scenes in the movie, where they're all fighting and there's just hundreds. But then after all, people are being killed and they're being killed, this is when they come across the Wendell mother.
Every time I see her now, I keep thinking of Enchantress.
yeah, Enchantress, yes. But the thing with this is, I noticed when they're going through the cave and they're going, you're still hearing the bear noises or the animal noises, because they actually are acting like ferocious animals. They've taken on the personalities in the characteristics of these animals to do the hunt. And even when they come across her, she's very feral like.
Yes.
And and then obviously they do kill her, and that once they kill her, then they barely get out alive, because there's just too many of them.
Yeah, because that's a key moment. Because if you see that picture again with her, she's got this like little claw there on her fingers, and she dips that in like poison, and so that's kind of how she defends herself. So unfortunately, some of the guys, when they went down into the cave, they had to remove some of their armor because it was too noisy because they were sneaking in first. So Beowulf's there. He's confronting her while the guys are keeping the other ones at bay. And he does decapitate her, but not before she scratches him and he gets like a cut from the poison nail.
Mm-hmm.
But then they end up getting out through a back way where the ocean water kind of was like Rambo when he was doing that, like, first blood got out through the back door. And so Beowulf is clear his days are numbered, maybe not even days, like hours, because he's really, really poisoned hard. It's probably the first emotional scene we get because he's sitting there and he's like, a man might be thought of a king if someone to write his story. And because Banderas is basically a poet and he can speak into symbols, he can draw stories. This is something that he and Beowulf share early in the film. He says a man might indeed be a very rich man, or whatever it was he said about telling his story once he passes. So I really like that moment. And then, of course, we have our final battle, to which they have to now kill the guy with the horns. It's like they didn't really expect him to come right away, but they were so pissed off about the mother that they decided they were just going to come out.
They decided to do something out of their character, out of their comfort zone, basically. So basically, this tribe of the Wendels, they only hunt at night or when it's foggy. So basically, they can camouflage within the darkness. But that enraged with the mother's death that they're like writing, just as like Antonio Banderas and the Northmen think that they have a time to like reinforce their home and to prepare for battle, get weapons created or get people ready to fight. Next thing you can hear the drums, you can hear you can hear everything going on over the wilderness, over the tree mountain area, and then you can slowly see them coming through, and then they realize they actually have no time to prepare. It's either now or not now, or now or die, basically.
That's where you get that really cool moment before because the Wendell are rushing at them and they start reciting the Nordic prayer again. It starts with Beowulf, who decides he's going to fight to his last breath. So he's out there kind of struggling, but he's like, I'm going to fight. And he starts reciting the prayer and everyone else joins in. And it's really a great moment. I really love that moment in the film. And then the final battle starts happening and Beowulf's actually able to kill the guy with the horns, which the rest of them just start dispersing and get fearful and run away.
Mm-hmm. Like I'll be completely honest, when the final battle happened, especially because it had built up to so long, I found that the final battle happened very quickly, and that it kind of like was rushed slightly, and it like was over before you know it. But I love that final scene after the battle with Beowulf, where he sits in his chair, like he sits down, and the rest are celebrating elsewhere when they get told that you need to come. And when they come, he's literally sitting like a king. Who's finally passed away, like on his throne where he belongs, with the blood on his face. But he's got like this certain look on his face, like he's at peace because he fulfilled his mission. And he was like a loyal king to the people, and he defended his people. He did what he was set out to do.
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I think only about 2 or 3. I think only about 3 of the other warriors outside of Banderas survived. I think most of them died.
Yeah.
But that was a really great moment for Beowulf. Just he got the job done.
Yeah.
And I do like the fact that also, because even though Beowulf was the son of a king, he wasn't quite a king yet. And so like earlier, when he's sick from the wound, the king, he's like, he said something about like, I'm only gonna be buried as a pallbearer or something weird like that. And he's like, the king's like, you shall be buried as a king. Like, I love that. That's such a cool moment.
Yeah. And then it ends where Banderas is gonna go and back, either go out. Was he heading back to Arabia, or was he
I
just
don't
heading
remember
off?
where either he's going to keep traveling or maybe go back to where the translator was. I don't know.
But he
did have some of the other guys. He had the musician was with him on the Nordic ship. So I don't know. He might have been going to another Nordic place. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, but I like how he's now become one of them. Like, they respect him. They respect him. Her guy, he like, even when he's waving to them and he goes, "You take care, brother." So he's like properly integrated in with them, and he's like a part of their culture and their tribe, and he's been accepted as one of them.
Yeah, I remember as he's leaving, he's on the ship and he's waving to Herger, and he's like, Herger's like, I shall pray for your safe return or something, and Banderas is like, yeah, I have one God, and so Herger's like, well, we have many, and I'll pray to them all. So yeah, I thought that was funny and a nice little way to end it.
Yeah,
you're right though. I mean, this movie probably could have used about another 30 minutes for more meat.
Definitely. I think it.
I think because McTiernan was so used to doing like very straightforward action films. So you think about like Predator and Die Hard and stuff like that. He was trying to keep it fast paced, but I think this is a film that kind of needed a little more beef to it.
Yeah,
because like you said, by the time you get to the villain, the horns of power, it's like you do expect something a little more because they really dispatched him pretty quick.
Yeah, it's like Logan's come to join me.
Hey, Logan, I see you too.
So, like, I felt like the pacing of the movie all the way through was steady. And then I was enjoying the characters, enjoying the story. I was enjoying like the story that we're telling on screen. And then all of a sudden, after the death of Wendell's mother, I was expecting, for the last hour, or at least maybe an extra 50 minutes, for to have this intense battle back at the home front where, you got to see, the leader go all out and there'd be like a huge battle. And I was expecting more from Banderas without the battle, but the thing with the battle, it did show all of them like fighting and defending, but there was not like that one key moment I felt that stood out among it all. Where like if you watch other
the interesting
films,
thing about the film and probably the book as well is that despite it's being told from Banderas' perspective, it's really more about Beowulf. It's more about him and his journey as a character, which is kind of funny because he's, again, not the main person per se, but but it's all based around him, really.
It's like how it comes across now that you've said that is it's trying to tell the Wendell and Beowulf story, but from somebody's other's point of view who's witnessed it happening in front of him.
Yeah.
So obviously you've got Beowulf, but yes, Beowulf's in this, but you don't really have much interaction as much as you would like. Yeah. And obviously Wendell, when you meet Wendell and the mother, there's only it's like done in the shadows and it's here and there. The focus is very much on Banderas trying to basically interact with the Northmen.
I mean, even with Olga, one of the maidens there at the kingdom, she develops a relationship with Eben, and so it's very fast paced. Like you really don't know if they even really slept with each other. It looks like they just slept because it's very tense and it's very it takes a lot of energy to stay awake as long as they are to fight these creatures. So there is a point where he's being woken up to come talk to the guys about going after the window, and Herger's like, so did she finish you off or did she revive you? And he's like, a gentleman never spates anything.
Yeah. Like, it's true. Like, there are aspects of this that I think they kind of leave out, where they really don't explore enough. So that part of it, like, Olga is in this, but when she was introduced, I was expecting her to have more of a role to play. I was expecting something like him to fall in love with her, and maybe potentially get kidnapped or killed, and then it sends him into like this rage where he's like full fucking Northern Viking mode. He forgets he's Arabian-ness, and he's like, right, this is it. I'm gonna learn all I've learned from the Northmen, put it into action, and I'm gonna revenge this new woman I fell in love with. But that doesn't really happen. So for me, the Olga situation, it was like it didn't go anywhere. Where, like you say, but it's not really about that. It's about Beowulf, and I do think that did a great job, like representing him. And and it really, like I said before, it's a story about showing that story, but from somebody else's point of view, which I think is what this film is yet to represent. So, what's your overall thoughts and your final rating for Beowulf?
Well, before I get into that, I did want to state that after I'd seen the film in the 90s, obviously I'm a big heavy metal guy, and a band called Dragon Lord, that was from one of the members from Testament, started at that time around 2001. And they released their first record, Rapture. And so I'm listening to this one particular song, and I'm like, as I'm listening to the lyrics and everything, I'm like, dude, this sounds very familiar. So I started reading the lyrics. I'm like, wait a minute, I know what this is. It's all about Eaters of the Dead. And I'm only going to play about a minute of it, but I just want people to kind of hear it, because there is a reference to the song title in the movie. And I can't remember if it's the Oracle that says it or one of the other people, but they reference that the window are kind of like spirits in the mist, because they talk about the fog and when they come and attack and stuff. So yeah, I'm only going to play like a minute of it, but I don't want to like bore people that aren't into metal, but I thought it was cool. So it's a cool band too.
Well, I ride beneath this roaring sky, see through the rock with eyes of the dead, cast in the bones, rage of the dead. Dirty roads, dirty men, prepare to die, deep in the mist, out of the blood. Leaders of the dead, the kingdom will fall. Nightfall, silence, in my eyes to see me. Cold blood, freezing, I see spirits in the veil.
So yeah,
I did hear the spirits, and I did hear the lyrics, and it did sound like what the Oracle said in the woodland area. So yeah, I did hear that. I did pick that up straight away. But like you say,
they probably have the lyrics online somewhere if you ever want to just go read them. But yeah, it totally references the book and everything. I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah,
because I didn't expect it when I had heard it.
As soon as if you hadn't have brought this to me and like mentioned this, I wouldn't have recognized it. But now, as soon as I've seen the movie and I've heard what is said within the movie, 100% makes 100% sense. So yes.
So yeah, my final thoughts are: I still really love this film. It is a 10 out of 10 for me. But I will say this, and I'm glad we did this review, because it did make me kind of think about how it should get a little more meat into it. So if for whatever reason Robert Eggers is watching this, please do a remake, please, because I think he would do a very cool job with it.
Either do a remake of the 13th Warrior, or take the book and make an actual adaptation of the book. That would be pretty cool. But at the minute, he's going to be working on his next feature, which you must be very happy about, which is Werewolf. And which I'm very much looking forward to. I hope it's a better job than Nosferatu, even though I like Nosferatu.
It's got some cool things about it. I mean, I didn't hate it, but it didn't hit the marks that like the 79 version did. But
yeah,
one thing Eggers always has is a beautiful eye for cinematography because it's always gorgeous, always gorgeous.
I agree. I agree with that, but also you have to add the things that we enjoy over the cinematography. So you can it's a treat to the eyes with the cinematography and the scenery. But when it came to the meat of the story, I felt as if he missed the mark. Like there were certain characters in this that he focused on where I felt as if I loved in the 1979 version where you actually, when you got the interactions with Orlok in his castle, and you got that kind of tenseness between them, which you tried to do that in a different way by not showing Orlok and just be it all atmospheric. But for me, it missed the mark on certain points. But in other elements, I was blown away. Like when you see Thomas's first heading to the castle and he's walking down that snowy walkway within the woodland and the carriage is coming toward that shot alone, I was like, that's just outstanding how that was done.
Yeah. A lot of cool stuff in it, but a little bit disjointed, but
Yeah. But with that said, what did you say 10 out of 10 for you?
10 out of 10 for
right.
me still, yeah.
For me, like I said, this is probably my third time viewing the 13 Warrior. Like I said, the first time I seen this, I don't think I enjoyed it. The second time, I enjoyed it better. And I'm happy to say I've enjoyed it even more the third time. I love the interaction with Antonio Banderas. I liked how he kind of becomes one of the Northmen. And like I say, I love the idea that it's trying to tell the Beowulf story, but it's being viewed by somebody else's perspective. And the biggest negative, though, for me, like I say, it has an amazing plot. It has fun pacing throughout, but then the last half hour just seems a bit too short.
I wonder if they should have maybe tried to kill the Horns of Power first and then leave the mother as the final battle. You wonder about that.
Yeah, I just think even if it had an extra 15-20 minutes just lay out the battle just a little bit better and have a little bit more knit and grit to it, then it would have been for me a 10 out of 10. But because that isn't the case, I have to be honest and true. I'm going to give this, and I think it's a fair rating, 7 out of 10.
Okay, yeah.
So, with that said, my friend, what is coming up on the Metal Tavern Radio?
Well, obviously, you and I next week will be doing another cinematic synergy for the Golden Voyage of Sinbad. Prior to that is Tuesday, which I'll be doing my first batch of Kaiju Spotlight episodes that I've been doing with everybody. And I'll be getting with Fat Samurai Guy as we do Biollante to finish that first batch, and then I'll work on the next group that I'm going to be doing. But that's really all that's immediate right now. I know that a lot of the stuff that I'll be doing will be a lot of the stuff that you've got going on with the Kong of February is Kong month.
Yes. So heading to the entertainment headquarters in the month of February, I'm going to be doing a month-long special of King Kong episode for Kaiju Connections, my segment on my channel, and it's all leading up to a interview with the lovely Linda Miller, who is the female star of King Kong Escapes. So we have King Kong 1933 in review. We have King Kong versus Godzilla 1962, King Kong Escapes, which is the film Linda starred in. Then we'll have another film which isn't connected to Kong but is connected to Linda Miller. I'll be doing a review of the the green slime, which she had a role in. And then, of course, that will end with a review. Like I say, not a review, an interview with the lovely Linda Miller. And, of course, we have another good friend of ours, Mr. Tony of the Dead. It is his birthday, I believe, on the 26th of February. So me, Anubis, Anthony Jordan, and potentially Chris from Metalomania will be joining forces to celebrate his birthday by talking about all the George Romero Dead movies. So that's what I've got coming up on the entertainment headquarters throughout the month of February. Please like and subscribe to this man right here, my amazing co-host, my friend, Mr. DJ Anubis of the Metal Tavern Radio. And if you want to, please like, share, and subscribe to the entertainment headquarters.
Do it. Do it.
But like I always say, keep on enjoying your movies, keep on enjoying all things entertainment. And from me and Mr. DJ Anubis, we'll catch us all at the next one.